All right, guys, happy Tuesday. We're at Dr. Cranium's office. Remember, John has spots on his nose, or at least his parents say he has spots on his nose. We'll see. Dr. Cranium was a tall, thin man with a bald head and gray mustache. He looked through his glasses at John and said, he eats lots of candy, Mr. Midas said. He hasn't been eating his meals properly, Mrs. Midas said. That's just what I thought, Dr. Cranium said. I can tell by looking at him that he eats much too much candy. The doctor shone a little electric light into John's right ear. Then he shone into his left ear. Then he shone into John's nose. He told John to open wide and say, "Ah!" Then he shone a light into John's mouth. Much too much candy. Gracious me, he seems to be full of candy. He told John to sit down and relax. Then he picked up a small rubber-handed hammer and gave John a little tap on the right knee, just below the joint. John's foot gave a weak kick. John giggled. It's nothing to laugh about, Mr. Midas said. No, John, the doctor replied. A healthy little boy who didn't eat too much candy would kick harder than that. I'm sorry, John said politely, but I can kick harder if you want me to. He gave a sudden high kick, which knocked the hammer out of Dr. Cranium's hand. It landed on the rubber handle and bounced across the room. John, exclaimed Mrs. Midas. I'm so sorry, Dr. Cranium. John, tell the doctor you're sorry for kicking his hammer. I'm sorry I kicked your hammer, John said. I would recommend less candy, Dr. Cranium told Mr. and Mrs. Midas. An upset stomach can lead to all sorts of complications. On the way home, Mrs. Midas tried to explain to John what she thought the doctor meant by complications. You see, she said, if you put too much of one kind of food into your stomach and not enough of other kinds, it is bad for your whole body, because different parts of your body need different kinds of food. Do you understand? I think so, John said. You've been eating too much sweet stuff, Mr. Midas added. There isn't room for eggs and meat and milk and bread and spinach and apples and fish and bananas and all the other things you're supposed to have to make you grow big and strong. I like bananas, John said, especially if the slices are covered with chocolate. They're called banana surprises. Mr. Midas looked at Mrs. Midas, and Mrs. Midas looked at Mr. Midas. They both shrugged their shoulders. Sometimes it was hard to make John understand things. At home, while Mrs. Midas was busy in the kitchen, Mr. Midas continued to reason with John. You mean you'd rather eat candy than anything else? And chocolate rather than any other kind of candy? Mr. Midas asked. Yes, John assured him. Oh, yes. Don't you think there's such a thing as enough? Mr. Midas persisted. Don't you think that things are best in their places? I mean, don't you think there's a time for spaghetti and a time for roast beef and even a time for pickled herring and garlic toast as well as a time for chocolate? Or would you rather have chocolate all the time? Chocolate all the time, John replied emphatically. That means with a lot of oomph. Chocolate's best, that's all. Other things are just food, but chocolate is chocolate. Chocolate. I think I understand, Mr. Midas broke in sharply. Very well. He took a deep breath and went on. John, he said, if you can't understand what sort of diet is really best for you, can't you at least get into your head that it makes your mother very unhappy when you eat so much candy and that you can't eat anything else? The conversation always seemed to be around the effect of John's candy eating on John's mother. John couldn't see how it could possibly do her any harm if he ate candy. Well, let me tell you, at my house, my wife would be mad if we didn't eat her supper. He sat silently for a moment. Then he said, May I go out and play, please, Dad? I just don't think this kid gets it. I mean, he's got too much candy on him. The doctor said it's bad for him. Dad said it's bad for him. Mom's sad because she wants him to eat some normal stuff. And the kid wants to go out and play. Stay tuned for tomorrow.